Howdy tubers, welcome back to the Zach Live. So this is actually a reshoot. I did this 2 days ago and the audio was so echoing here with my audio recorder sitting right over there, it was unusable. So if some of this looks like it's a couple of days ago, that's because it was. I'm gonna kind of cut back and forth here. So we were supposed to be in the new office today. I wanted to show you that place is pretty neat. I decided I needed to back up and do this chronologically. A lot of y'all said, hey, we want to go see the office that's about to fall in. So that's what I'm going to do today. I'd like to take, in the previous video I talked about the one down there in the shop. If you hadn't seen it, it's pretty neat. A bunch of old junk down there. It's my great-grandpa's workshop. But I talked about how he got into business, and I'd like to spend more in this video talking about how specifically he got into the oil business and how my family got into oil business. There is some junk in the back here we're going to dig through. It's not anything like the other building, but there is a few neat things back here you might want to hang around and watch. So if you hadn't seen the Oklahoma Jack video, I'll put a link in the description. You got to go check it out. It's pretty cool. It's actually the first lease that my great-grandpa and his partner purchased or subleased. I'll explain in a minute. Anyway, I've had a lot of real specific questions I asked in that. You know, that video was mostly geared toward just the Oklahoma Jack. And I'd like to redo that. In fact, I think it'll probably be the first video I do after I sort of get caught up on this stuff we're doing here. I'd like to go do a revisit. And I'd like to explain, you know, what's pulling it, why it is like it is, why it's set up like it is, and give a lot of details of exactly, you know, why and what. But anyway, let me pull you around. I've already drawn this here, but I'm going to reuse it and point some stuff out. I'd like to give you some specifics about that oil lease and how my great-grandpa got into the oil business. So I don't want to get lost in the legal jargon of this. I want to be careful to not take this video there, but my lease out there is actually two halves. And and how that came to be was, I don't know what my great-grandpa's connection was with this guy, but there was a guy here that had a huge deep lease. This thing's probably like 1,000 acres or something. I mean, it's giant. And he told him, he says, hey, I want to sublease the shallow corner of this lease here. And the guy said, okay, for 3.5%, I'll sublease you everything less than 2,000 feet in this corner. I think it's 40 acres or 60 acres or something of this plot. And so still to this day, for every dollar of oil I sell, some heir of this guy up here gets 3.5 cents of it. Anyway, neither here nor there. So anyway, they drilled this first well, and it came in. It was a really good well. I think it came in about 20 or 30 barrels. It lasted a little while, and they were excited. This was their first venture in the oil business. My great-grandpa had been in the industry, but he had never been an owner up to this point. And so they drilled a couple of wells. They did really good. They actually leased this part here from the mineral owners that butted up to this. And so this is how we ended up with a consecutive chunk of land. It is just legally divided in the middle. It's got separate tanks and separate separators. Anyway, that's not where this video is going, but I just wanted to clarify that's how this came to be. Anyway, they ended up drilling 4 wells here, and they drilled what's known as a 5-spot water flood, and they drilled an injection well right in the middle of these 4 wells. This isn't, you know, a big high-powered water flood. They're just putting the water from that these wells made back into that same formation right there. In the early 50s, they didn't frack these wells, and the reason they didn't frack them is because you run a chance when you try to water flood of the well channeling. And so as you frack this and you've got little fissures that carry the sand through the formation, they can actually connect. And that's a really bad thing, because if you get a connection from here to your injection well, even if it's a really small hole through the ground, you know, with a little piece of sand through it, the water that you put in the injection well will travel right through that channel and into your well. It ruins your well. And so anyway, in the 50s, they didn't frack any of these wells, and they went ahead and drilled all the rest of these, this Oklahoma Jack being the last. So I don't know exactly how their setup went as they drilled, but after they had drilled all this, the American unit that's now in this well that pulls the Oklahoma Jack was here, and it had a rod line that went to this well, this well, this well, and this well. These were all in a line. And when I was a kid, it was still just like that. This setup was the same way. There was a Jensen here that had a rod line that pulled either of these. Now I've plugged these 4 wells. They're not there anymore. There's just an injection well and this one, and the 3 here still in a row. So in 1963, my grandpa bought out my great-grandpa's partner. And so it was all my great-grandpas and my grandpas. It was all my families. And what they started doing, I think at that point this lease had dwindled down. It probably wasn't making much. They went in here and started fracking these things. They fracked them all really easy. But they would frack like one a year. And the wells came back like they were new. You know, they did really well. They would make 20 barrels for, 6 or 8 months or maybe a year, and they'd still make quite a few barrels after quite a few years. Anyway, they did really, really good for a while out of this lease. So I wanted to explain how this lease was somewhat of a cornerstone of their beginning. They had other stuff, but, the amount of oil that they made out of these 9 little crappy wells, the formation is just looks like nothing on a log. It's a little ratty piece of crap. It's really amazing the amount of oil that has been produced out of this little, probably 30 or 40 acre little section here. And it just goes to show that it takes hard work and determination and skill, but there is a little bit of luck involved, to stumble into something like this. Somehow or another, he knew this guy and went out there and dug a well and made a well out of it. Anyway, this is one of the key things that sort of put them on the map. They made money with it. Helped them buy other things. So I'm gonna give you a walk around of this office part here. I actually pulled this sheetrock down from the ceiling and the wall there a few months ago. You could push on the building and tell there was no stud there. There was a couple of them that were really bad, and the termites had devoured it. I pulled it off the ceiling here. You could kind of see up there. Actually the rafters and the joists and stuff look really good. This building hasn't really leaked any. It's not rotted. It's just the termites have devoured a few of the studs. There's not a lot left of this. It'd be kind of neat to fix it all. I hate to pull the sheetrock off of it. Of course, that's the place we're at. It's both kind of an amazingly great condition for being, it hasn't been taken care of or even used in the last 40 or 50 years. But with that being said, it's not that far from falling in. I know, it's kind of neat. I hate to tear it down. It's been a staple in this town for so long. Back here though was their I don't know what you would call this, a place that kept junk. I'm sure when this was used, it was used much more, I don't know, like organized or whatever, but when they built the new office and quit using this building, I think they just kind of used this place like the junk drawer of a building. They just threw all their junk in it that they didn't know what else to do. Interestingly, there's the hose. I bet that's the newest hose and gas spout out the old gas pump. It doesn't look all that super old. There's we've got a 756 International tractor. That's the batteries that come off of them. It had 2 of those long skinny 6-volt tractors. Fuse box is gone. You can tell there used to be power come in. I talked about down there was that wire that came up out of the ground. This is the other end of it. It comes up out of a piece of pipe. I guess there used to be a little fuse box right there. Of course, that's all been long disconnected. I don't think the electricity is working here in many decades. But there's not much to see in here. A couple electric motors. There's some magnetos. I'm not sure what this is. I was gonna see if any of y'all might have a clue. It's a big old chunk of brass. There's no markings on it other than a number. It kind of looks carburetor-ish, but it isn't. It looks expensive. There's a little bitty Lovejoy coupling. Here's a box full of, or part of a bucket full of these old doll heads. We talked about these. These are what the rod lines rode on. These went down in a piece of pipe. It was driven in the ground, and the rod lines went back and forth. He must have picked these up. It's kind of neat. Of course, back at this, when he would have picked these up, he might have picked these up to use because they still had quite a few running out there. Here's kind of another neat deal. I think this is a box of new insulators. How long has it been since you've seen one of these with the wooden dowel still in them? I don't. I don't believe that these are used. They could be, I'm not sure, but either that or they just picked up a long time ago. Of course, got an old bathroom in here. Not much to see. What does it say on the toilet there? Oh. Kilmore. They still got the sticker on the toilet. There's one of those old, I'll be dang. One of those really old float things like we found down there in the old shop down there. Old sink. Some old magnetos. There's an old tally tape. If you work in an oil field, the oil field's only got 10 inches per foot. See, 6, 7, 8, 9, 1 foot. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 inches, 2 feet. Water pump parts. What is that? Battery regulator voltage. I guess it's a voltmeter for a battery. It's kind of cool. More magnetos. I've never in my life ever seen a mag that looked like that. Fairbanks Morse type RB6B. Look, FM's like that. So I've got to admit, yesterday I actually opened these filing cabinets, and these filing cabinets that we're fixing to open were it was the first time I had ever looked at them. I had to move some stuff. I actually found a new can of Acme weed killer poison. I'm not sure what to do with that, but I don't really want to touch it. I actually haven't opened this one yet. What is this? What is that? Let's look at that in a minute. So I'm not really sure how to go about showing you this cabinet because it's really neat, but I also don't want you to see it, and I'll explain why. I'm going to show you what I can here, but not, not all of it. So I got a setup where I'm going with this, and I'm going to talk about this more in the next video in the building over there. But my great-grandpa, my grandpa, and my grandma were all three absolute sticklers for keeping every piece of paper they ever had. And they went through several IRS audits, and I think that probably had a lot to do with them. They really drug them over the coals for several years. It didn't catch them on anything. It was just typical IRS back in the day when you made money. But they kept every instruction book for every toilet they ever had. I mean, everything. It's just kind of comical to me. I've thrown a lot of that stuff away that wasn't the old neat stuff. But this cabinet over here is completely full of every bill, of every invoice, of every bank statement, of everything that they had from 1948 up until 1956. At 56, everything else was moved over to the other building over there, and it was kept yearly. I don't want to show this to you. I don't want you to see the actual names. I don't want you to see the addresses. I don't think it's unreasonable for me to not want you to have the address to my house. But I just wanted to show you, you know, here's one I just found. This is December 31st, 1951. And this is one of their accounts. It's the bank statement from the bank in 1951. I had no idea this stuff was over here, and I can't believe how great a shape it's in, considering it's in a filing cabinet next to an open window. But here is a old bank statement from the early 50s, and there's some stuff older. I didn't find any bank statements, but like here's their invoices from 1954. And anyway, it's the cabinet's completely full top to bottom. This is all those years. This one's the only one that had something different. This was had some keys. I think this is an old cigar box. I'm assuming that's what it is. I guarantee that thing's been in there a while. 38 special. Piece of cord. I'm gonna take this home with me. This is kind of neat. I think this was. I know the military had these that look like this. Golly. These are little glass vials that go in a centrifuge, and this is how you centrifuge out and check how much water is in your oil. You spin it in the water, settle in the bottom. I'm curious as to what this is. I wonder if it's like a rain shoe or something. Look at that. Oh, it's a pair of waders. There's a few more things up here. It's kind of neat. I'm not sure what that is. Any of y'all got an idea? It looks like a cage or something. I wondered if it was for like a lining pipe when you were welding it or something. I'm really not sure. There's some kind of something there. There's a couple of boomers. Torch. I might have to go through a Zack Life restoration video right there. And old drill. What is this? First aid kit. A McDonald's snake bite kit. McDonald's snake, that's pretty cool. I had a lot of people ask me if rattlesnakes are common here, and the answer is absolutely. I kill probably at least a dozen a year. And that's kind of neat. Here is some of the junk that was actually stacked in there. There was a sheet of plywood. This old barrel is full of used motor oil. I've got to get it hauled off, get rid of it, get rid of the barrel. But it had these tires in there too, and they were just chunked in there. Like I say, I think this place was, you know, was literally used as the junk drawer of their business. There's some cool old cans too, Conoco and that Cap 10, whatever, gas odorant. I'm not even sure what that is. Some old glass bottles, some big old shivs. Man, there's kind of some neat stuff in here. But I think at that point they were pretty much done with this building, and as I said, they just threw junk in here they didn't really have anywhere else to go with. Of course, right there is where we were at last video. That house is just right there. Used to be my great grandpa's. It's been sold. We don't own it anymore. Interesting side note, I don't know exactly where it's set, but somewhere back that direction. I'm thinking probably around where that fence line is or something. There used to be another trailer house, and that was actually where my great grandpa lived. He died in 1970. I don't know exactly what year he was born. I'm actually the 5th generation of my family with my same surname that has lived and worked in some form or another on this piece of property. Yeah, you know, you get back here past where the sheetrock covers it up, and this old building doesn't look that bad. It doesn't leak. It doesn't seem to leak. If it does much, you know, everything back here is pretty decent shape. Well, I believe I'm done over here for the day. Appreciate you watching. Next week we're going to be over there in the quote-unquote new office. It's a similar situation, except it's like a time capsule from the 70s, not from the 50s, and it's much more organized. It's the one that they still used. It's the one I still use. I'm in it maybe not every day, but most days. Anyway, it's pretty cool. It's got some old stuff in it. Appreciate you watching. Like, share, subscribe. We'll catch you over there next week.